Well, happy holidays to everybody. Sharing our latest Christmas gift to each other. My wife and I picked up a 5-gallon top fin split for Betta's little tank here. And as you can see on the left hand side we have a nice red Betta and less vibrant just because of the way the lighting is. On the right side there's a blue Betta. And between the two of them, we have also added a couple neons and 2 small catfish on both sides to make sure any food that gets down into those plants, which we brought from the other tanks, of course. And so you've got 2 catfish, 2 neons, and a Betta on each side. Very nice. I'm curious to see how it works out. Up in the upper left-hand corner you have a built-in filter, which is very interesting. I like what they've done with that. And I've come to realize that as our heat in this room goes down to 68 at night and usually in the mid-70s during the day, last night for example was 78, I need a heater in here. So going out to pick up a 50-watt heater to give some consistency to the temperature here, and we'll see how it goes. Actually, we put in 3 neons on each side, and somehow they decided 3 was 1 too many, so on both sides we lost 1 neon. And you can see how brilliant that red Betta is. The blue one is just as brilliant if he shows his fins, and like I say, the lighting is a little bit favorable to the left hand side. So you may not be able to quite see what he's capable of doing. Went out to Hidden Reef to check out their Bettas the other day, and I was looking for a black Betta to match up with the white one that is doing so well in our bow tank. You can see how red this one is. And so we've expanded just a little bit, took advantage of the plant growth in the other tanks. And curious to see how this makes out, being a small tank. How often do you have to change the water? What kind of fertilization can I do with it to have the kind of success that we've seen in the other tanks? That's just some of the questions I'm trying to figure out the answer to. We got some red kabamba there. And there's the blue Betta. Don't know if he'll flare with his fins or not, so you can just see how beautiful he is. You can see one of the catfish there. So this one sits on a pedestal off to the far end of the living room. So we still continue having our fishes in the living room, which makes it very convenient to enjoy all the day long. Just to give you a sense of where things are. So anyway, just wanted to share that Christmas gift with you. Just talked to my sister Maggie, and evidently her son bought her a 5-gallon fish tank without the split part of it. So we're going to see what she does with that. For now, let's move over quickly to the other tanks just to give you a quick update. And of course we have that beautiful lighting in the corner of this room from the fish tank. That was never part of my design, but I love the way it plays out. And so there's that corner tank, a forest of color, still doing very, very well, keeping up with that fertilization program, a little CO2 every morning, and leaf zone once a week, and then plant tabs on a quarterly basis. So you can see how well that's doing. The kabamba especially responds to that fertilization program, and of course, as I said before, and I'm so proud of the Madagascar lace plant that continues to have about 20 leaves to it, most of which will reach the top water of this 55-gallon tank. So I think it's about 22 inches. I could be a little bit conservative on that. But it's all doing well, and even the Ledwigia down here that I didn't mention before, seems to be thriving. And next time we see this, I'm going to take that corner red Kabamba trimming that I've done, which is hard to see here, but we're going to move it over to the left-hand side where I've cleared out that corner. There was an Amazon sword right here in the corner. We moved that into that new Betta tank. This is the corner tank again. You certainly recognize that by the Madagascar lace plant, which continues to do so beautifully here. Although I gotta say the leaves on it look like they're turning less bright green into a drab dark olive green. So I'm wondering if it's going to go through its cycle and we're going to lose all these leaves eventually and go into a dormant state as I've had once before when I had one of these beautiful plants. The corkscrew vallisneria you saw in the back corner of the split 5-gallon. I took one plant of each over there just to give it some height, and so we were able to move these plants back a little bit while we did that. And then panning through the banana plant, and then we freed up a little bit of here, a little bit of space here. You might be able to see the red Amazon, I think it is, in the background here, and then the cryptocarine on the right. We moved the small cryptocarine over to the other tanks, but you can see the red leaves here doing well, a little bit hidden. Wish I had more space in this tank. And then of course we have the Kabamba forest, as I call it. I'm going to trim back some of the red Kabamba, and I'm going to take advantage of that space over on the left hand side to move it over. So we'll see how that makes out with a little bit more light. As I understand, the red Kabamba needs more light. And of course that Amazon sword in the background continues to do beautifully. So that's the corner tank, and let's take a look over at what's going on with the bow tank. We continue to thank you for your very nice comments out here on YouTube on the condition of these tanks. Oh look, we have the white Betta doing its thing for a change. Isn't that gorgeous? Now this tank is so well planted that I really had hoped to find a black Betta over a hidden reef to put in here and see how these two would get along, given it's so much planting that they can get away from each other. And I led to understand that you can keep 2 or more male Bettas in a tank that's well planted so that the fish can get away from each other. And so the corner tank continues to do well, although we did lose one of the big angels just the other day. And also one of the catfish, which is very unusual, so I don't know what that was about. Oh, the white Betta is back out. We've got a couple small black angels the other day over at the fish factory. They always have a good price. And for whatever reason, that white Betta is doing its thing. And for as fragile as those Bettas look like, they do defend their territory, if you will. And it's not exactly pure white, but when it's under the light you can see there's almost an iridescent green sheen to it. But I love the uniqueness of that. And this is as I recall, was not an expensive Betta. This was just a normal $2.99 Betta over at the Hidden Reef. It's unusual for him to be out showing off like this, so I'm glad I was able to capture it for you. Isn't that beautiful finnage? And so, there's not much to say about this tank. This is doing just as usual, fine growth. Nice and solid plants, many different plants. I once counted, I think I had 22 different varieties of plants. And that gives it quite a nice look with the different textures and the different colorations, everything from that really bright green Kabamba and Ambulia off to the right hand corner. You've got the reddish of the Ludwigia just to the left of center. You've got that Rotella in the dead center, which has got a brownish red to it. You've got the bright red of some Ludwigia off to the right of center. You've got the Amazons, small Amazons, big Amazons. The Amazons do very well with that fertilization program. In fact, I want to take one of the smaller ones out of this tank. There's a small one down in the front here that I think would do well in that small Betta tank. What do you think? Right there. It's small enough and doing well enough. Really curious to see how the plants do in that small tank. They came out of these tanks, and so it's kind of nice to be able to set up a tank. We took water out of these tanks so it didn't have to be aged or anything, and moved over just a couple of plants to give it some variety. And so that's the bow tank for the holiday season. As promised, here's the office tank. Nothing spectacularly new in this. It's also doing very well plant-wise. Overgrown mainly with that huge Amazon sword plant in the center. And that plant has about 25 leaves on it now, most of which reach the top of this 22-inch high hex tank, 30-gallon. And the forest certainly is doing a great job with protecting the many babies here. There's a lot of live bears in this particular tank, as you can see. And so it's got a lot of tiny babies, growing up babies, and I'm just letting it do its thing. And it's doing very well. And for unusually so, the water wisteria is doing well in this particular tank. So it's getting enough light, I guess. And needless to say, everybody is happy here, especially those colorful female guppies. And we added a male or two, I think, the other day to round out the population so they wouldn't be chasing each other all the time, but have some competition among themselves. And so there's about 3 catfish in here. I think there's still a pleco, although I never see the pleco, so it's either hidden in the back. It was too big just to die and not be noticed, so I think it's still there. And probably 8 guppies, and then a bunch of colorful platies, nice big size platies there. And that's where some of the babies are coming from, so I'm really curious to see them grow up. You see that one wag, gold wag platy, and then there's a couple, what do they call them? They started out as half black mollies with the gold yellow bodies, and so there's a couple here that have grown up from babies. I don't have the adults anymore, but the babies are growing up, and they're so well acclimated to this particular water, I guess, that they're doing well. And so we're self-populating this tank with young ones that are growing up to be adults. So that's sort of what's going on here in this particular tank. As you can see, the plants have the same fertilization program here in terms of CO2 in the morning, leaf zone on a weekly basis when I change the water about a third. And this is the tank that I think I may have mentioned last time. I was having some problem with the fish in this tank, and so I finally used Ray's very fancy test kit, one with 4 test tubes and about 8 different bottles to test different things. And the pH, while it was supposed to be good for live bearers, it was 7.8, and that's kind of high, I thought. So I used some 7.0 pH chemicals that I had, and just treated it one time, and next 2 days later I tested it and the pH was 7.0, and the fish seem to be doing better now that I've made that adjustment. So with that, we'll again thank you for your comments, your thoughtful compliments, especially on how well the plants are doing. And yes, I like them as a jungle, as some of you do too, and so I'm going to keep doing that. It was fun being able to pick and choose plants from these tanks to put in that new Betta arrangement. and to find small enough plants that would go with that small environment. Worked out very well. Okay, until next time, I hope you're enjoying your holidays, and wishing you a Happy New Year in advance of next week's Tuesday, New Year's Day, here in the United States. Take care.